to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to
the Chiss Ascendancy.
We're here at episode 92, and the whole gang is here.
We're back.
We made it. Josiah, Samuel, Adam, all three of us are here. It's episode 92, and tonight, gentlemen, we are doing a Tales of the Jedi talk through, focusing on Ahsoka. And so this came out a little while ago, and we were all kind of on a hiatus at the time. And so we're finally getting to talk about it. And so tonight's the night. We decided to focus on Ahsoka tonight. Maybe our next episode focus on Dooku. And then I think we've got a cool canceled episodes of the Clone Wars episode lined up after that to kind of go into some of the stories that weren't actually developed. So some fun stuff. And then you guys are all caught up on the Bad Batch as well, correct?
Correct.
So that's been a lot of fun. I know that Samuel was super excited for Gunji.
Yeah, and, I saw his little tooth, and I was like, "Oh, I know that. I know that tooth anywhere." You know,
old Snaggletooth.
Snaggletooth. Yeah.
Can we, while we're talking about it, characters' faces in that show, can we talk about how spherical that one Trandoshan's head was? I thought he was a whole other species. The commander.
I thought something similar too.
When I saw him live and in action, but in the hologram, I was like, "Is he a Trandoshan?"
Yeah, it was real weird. We, me and Finn from Findor Moon on Instagram, obviously recorded episode 91, and it was real. We were talking about how weird it looked, and he was more like Birdie than the other Trandoshans.
I wasn't. I feel like maybe the Clone Wars animation style has gotten a little too creative with what Trandoshans look like, but I mean, I'm not on the team, so I don't really get a say. But I didn't think he looked very Trandoshan-y just because they kind of have the lizard mouth, the beak. At least, I mean, I don't know. Bosk is like the template, so
right.
But
yeah, what was it? Was it? Do you think it was just like the roundness of the whole head shape?
I think it was. Yeah, his face was just like. His mouth was not like removed from the face itself at all. I feel like it was just a flat mouth. You know what I mean? So it's like if you have Bosk, right, you have a very open like this way mouth, and so he had that still, but it was just a humanoid head.
Yeah, so it was a weird combo.
It was weird, but I don't know.
And how crazy was it? Like, how sad was it to finally be back on Kashyyyk? After all these years of playing Battlefront and reading and books and comics and things, and then our first taste is, the clones are now working with the Trandoshans to enslave the Wookiees and destroy their home world.
Not super surprising, just because all my many playthroughs of Jedi Fallen Order and this Ultimate Sith's edition of Force Unleashed. Because, I mean, you play a lot of time on Kashyyyk in both those games. So not super surprising. It's early in that, right? So you have more clones than stormtroopers, but definitely the Empire, I feel like they went for the Wookiees early on in pretty much any branch of Star Wars lore that you go for.
It was just sad because
go ahead.
I was going to say the helmets is just what made me sad. Like, I'm totally on board because I remember the very first episode or the very first mission on Force Unleashed is your Vader on Kashyyyk,
it's sick.
Killing the Wookiees.
Yeah, you're throwing people like a mile. I'm here for
seeing the clone Phase 2 helmet working with the Trandoshans, it was just that specific clash was sad.
The collab. Yeah, I get that. But also, if we have taken into account the fact that it's so cool to see those like very modified separatist tanks, it's kind of weird because it's like the enemy working with the enemy, you know what I mean? But it was cool to see the way that they'd taken the tank nozzle, I don't know what you wouldn't call them, the barrels, and made it flamethrowers. I thought that was sick. That was a really cool touch, and seeing the hunting nets and whatever. I mean, it's what other species you're going to pit against the Wookiees, you know what I mean?
It's classic Trandoshans where it's like, all right, we'll take this tank and put a flamethrower on it. Like, it was just such a funny freaking, like, I don't know, just such a Trandoshan thing to do, to put a flamethrower on it.
I'll tell you what, though, mad respect for Hunter when he cold-cocked. Also, shout out to the phrase cold-cocked. just one punch knocked out that Trandoshan and like ripped him out. I was like, is this Wrecker or is this Hunter? Who are we watching right now?
Hey,
I think that's the most impressed I've ever been.
Did you guys watch? Do you typically watch shows and stuff like that with subtitles?
Yeah, always. I was heavily against subtitles in my teens, but as I've gotten into my later 20s, subtitles is the way to go because I'm fat and I eat my snacks and the crunchy noise overrides the actual text.
Well, plus like subtitles are so nice because you can see the dialogue and pick up on the subtle, little extra
Sometimes
stuff.
you get the little extra stuff,
Yeah.
But like that's also, if you guys remember, subtitles a lot of times also has descriptive sound stuff. So when the Death Troopers were in Mandalorian, we got that. And so I was reading the subtitles while I'm watching the episode, and I was cracking up because it kept saying Wrecker makes Wookiee noise. Did you catch that?
No, it didn't. That's awesome.
I missed that bit, but I do enjoy when whoever gets to do the onomatopoeias. You know what I mean? So they'll see like angry sigh. Just however they choose to describe it. I always enjoy that.
Yeah, I'll have to find. I'm gonna take some notes because if we say something funny or make a joke, I want to keep track of the time. 6 minutes. Wrecker Wookiee noise.
Wrecker Wookiee.
I'll have to see if
I thought the Wrecker fit in with the Wookiees really, really well.
Dude,
really pound for pound.
I think that's if there's ever a place that he can like find a home, it would be with them. I think if the batch ends up splitting up,
I would never in a million years want to work or live on Kashyyyk. It's just a big old nope for me.
But if your whole all of your enthusiasm in life was to punch giant bugs, and that's like your main goal in life, you're in the right place.
Starship Troopers?
Yeah. I mean, I can't argue with that logic. Just me having played Jedi Fallen Order so much and realizing all the very, very deadly fauna that's on Kashyyyk.
Right.
It's a big old nope from me.
So let's dive here into Tales of the Jedi. So, like I said, we're focusing on Ahsoka this week, and so obviously you have a couple of different episodes. So the very first episode of the whole series is focusing on Ahsoka, and that was called Life and Death. And so it's literally all the way from Ahsoka's birth until they realize and discover that she's a Jedi. And so what were y'all's thoughts? Because I know, Adam, this was you watched it for the first time getting into this. So you got to see some of this stuff for the first time, whereas me and Tammy were rewatching it. So I'm kind of jealous that your thoughts are so fresh on this. What did you think about it?
Origin stories are always great, and then actually going back to seeing this, I guess my first take on it was, it's a mom and child thing. I mean, you lose your child, you freak out, but yet the child is out there taking care of herself. It's just like, it's one of those things that it's kind of sad at first, but then it's again, with it being an origin story, it's very cool to just see the progression happen so fast as a youngling.
Yeah. It's cool because we're recording this on the 4th of February. Shout out to Kobe Bryant, 2-4. But it's Houston, my youngest son's birthday. He's a year old today. And it was crazy because I was rewatching some of those episodes to just refresh my memory. And the whatever you want to call it, the ritual of taking the youngling out to get their first hunt was, just after a year. So it's cool because it was basically Ahsoka's first birthday when she goes into the wild with her mom. And so it's cool. I was like, oh, it's my son's birthday today, as well as Ahsoka's birthday when she went out.
Take him out to the wild.
I was like, dude, the whole time I was watching that, I was thinking, man, this is not realistic at all. Hunting, dude, I obviously you got kids too, but it would just be like the amount of quiet and okay, Ahsoka, be quiet. We're going to shoot the deer now. And Ahsoka's like, Ahsoka was like, I got it. Freaking, there's no way. But I thought it was
the comprehension at that age level is unmatched. I mean, because like compared to us, you know, like we have 1-year-olds and we tell them to be quiet. They're like, Dada, Dada.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just like as loud as possible. But she's just like, okay, let me be quiet now.
Yeah, she was like, all right, Ahsoka, we're going to go on a hunt. If I told Houston, all right, Houston, be quiet, 9 times out of 10, I'd be like, okay. And I look and he'd be like, just making a poop face, you know?
Poopy face.
Samuel, did you spill a drink?
No, I had to go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay. Oh. So we were talking about
now that I'm airing my dirty laundry.
We were talking about how cool it was that right at a year old, Ahsoka's mom was taking her out into the wild, and just her, I don't know, her recognition of everything her mom was saying and stuff like that was obviously at such a high level. And then what did y'all think about the freaking the saber-toothed tiger?
That fat saber-toothed tiger from Ice Age.
Yeah, dude, that's exactly what I was thinking.
He looked exactly like him. Not the skinny one that's like, I want them all, but the other one.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's all I could think about when I looked at him. I was like, man, that boy's he's a thick boy. He's a thick old boy. He's just, yoked to the nines. But
yeah, that Sabretooth was the chocolate lab of Sabretooth. Like every time you see chocolate lab, you're like, this guy could cut back on the kibbles and bits, don't you think?
Like that one lab that came crashing through the undergrowth at that Shawshank themed disc golf course that we played, and we're like, is that what is that coyote coming through? It was just freaking Brooks, the Labrador, coming crushing through the woods there. But yeah, no, he was cool. And my wife Tori, she's a big a cat person, so I was like, hey, there's a cat in this episode, maybe engage. So a little bit of a connection point there,
dude. But,
I think it's cool to see that.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking it was cool. It's somewhere between like Earth and Pandora and the Blue Avatar, not Avatar: The Last Airbender, but somewhere in like the flora and fauna, somewhere between that spectrum. You know what I mean? Some very like alien, but also earthy kind of flora and fauna there. So I just enjoyed the kind of midway point there and seeing the connection of how the culture fit into all of it and how connected they were to their resources and all that. It's just very cool to see how, because I mean, we don't get a lot of backstory on the Togrutans in general, except for that arc in Clone Wars where they've been enslaved. So just a cool little tidbit there, not just for Ahsoka, but for her people in general, because we don't have a lot there.
Yeah, and it was also interesting because for them to know what the Jedi were was cool, because going back into the age of the High Republic, the Togruta people were very hesitant to trust the Republic, which obviously the Jedi and the Republic kind of go hand in hand. And then it was cool because obviously I'm a big fan of the different stylings and angles and things of that of the Force. And so what do you think about the lady that was kind of like the village, like shaman or whatever, the Yenta,
elder,
as it were, of that village? Do you think that her connection, like when she's putting a little mark on the forehead of Ahsoka and Ahsoka's
Simba.
Mom, and then you can kind of also, like, whenever there's the moment where the tiger attacks and Ahsoka's mom is shooting off rounds at the tiger, and there's a moment where she's starting to, for lack of a better term, she's like praying or chanting or whatever. What do you guys think about that? Is there, because obviously on Earth there are different religions with different sources of believed power and stuff like that, but it's kind of, in Star Wars, it seems like everything kind of ties into the Force. Like the Night Sisters are a different religion from the Jedi or the Sith, but it ties into the Force. Do you think that this elder woman, this shaman or village leader or whatever, do you think that her chantings and stuff, because it was into Gruta, you don't know what she's saying, but do you think that she's tied to the Force?
It seems like, and just to tie back into the episode we were talking about for the Bad Batch earlier, the Wookiees very clearly have a connection to Kashyyyk. You know what I mean? And so I feel
Right,
like maybe
right.
the connection that they have with their planet and their environments are going to be unique, but because of the way, for lack of a better term, the theology of the Force works, that the connection is going to go to the ultimate source, right? Which is the Force, the thing that binds everything. But the medium is going to be unique to the people and the planet. So I think, you know, based on the fact that they're very rustic, very rural, it seems like they're much more connected with their environment. It seems like, you know,
Right.
they have these rituals, that they have a literal 1-year-old going on a hunting expedition and facing it with, you know, death, speaks to the fact that their people are probably very connected to their planet. And so a connection with the
Right.
planet, to me, speaks a connection with the Force. It seems like, kind of reminds me of like in Samoan culture, they have like the auntie, is what it reminds me of, having that Togrutan kind of in charge. And so I would think that she seems very connected to the Force, and the fact that even before or without hearing the gunshot, she seems very connected with what's happening with both Ahsoka and her mom, just on what's going on and blessing them. And it seems like she's definitely like kind of the shaman of their village. So I would say she's probably definitely Force sensitive, at least to the degree that Maz Kanata is.
Yeah, it's a good point.
In my recent studies of, I've been doing a lot of research on like Norse mythology, Vikings, all that kind of stuff. As she's doing her rituals and stuff like that, it reminded me a lot of that. Like they're, you know, and Vikings were very in touch with each other. They're very in touch with their gods or whatever the case may be. But in this case, it may be, you know, the Force. And so it may all, like you said, it may all tie together, very similar to that. But yeah, I equated it a lot to that kind of ritual, if you will. Just like, that's just the way the Vikings would do things. Like, you know, they talk over each other, they'd speak to each other, they, you know, they do all their shamanistic things that they would do. So I mean, that's kind of where I was at with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it was a cool combination of their connection to one another and their own rituals and stuff, kind of like what you were saying, Adam. And then also, I do feel like the Force is at work there as well, especially whenever the mom or Ahsoka are in danger and she can like sense it, you know, like it doesn't make geographical sense or audio sense for her to hear that blaster that's in the middle of a dense wooded forest, however far away enough to go hunting. You know what I mean? So clearly there's some kind of a connection there. So I thought that was cool. And it also was cool kind of transitioning from that first episode into the second Ahsoka episode.
Episode 5 of the 6.
Yeah, which is titled Practice Makes Perfect. I thought it was cool.
It's kind of fun.
A lot of practice.
Yeah, a lot of practice.
All practice, honestly. Just practice.
It was
Alan
interesting.
Iverson.
We're talking about practice.
Practice?
Yeah, Alan Iverson would have died in Order 66, hands down.
100%.
No
Alan
practice.
Iverson, no practice, would be the A-list Sakura of Order 66.
Would not even turn around.
Wow.
I love George, and I love Episode 3. I just feel like some of the acting in Episode 3 was, like, just subpar. Like, all right, you're going to get shot, act surprised. And it just, the surprise fall forward just always gets me. But I thought it was so cool because Ahsoka, when we meet her in the Clone Wars movie, and especially in those first couple of seasons, there's a lot of angst and attitude and whatever. And then as she gets older and matures, there's a easier going, stronger connection to the Force, trusting more in the Force, some of those aspects. And it's so cool that her natural connection from the first episode of Tales of the Jedi is just that, where, you know, she is more grounded in the Force itself, and her confidence comes from, like, when you're that young, your confidence isn't because you're actually confident. It's because that's just whatever your natural resting space of mind is. And I think it's cool that she has that natural connection to the Force, and she's getting back to that as she gets older.
Yeah. I think a lot of her personality comes through as she gets older and gets more confident in who she is. Because you see her younger and, I don't know, what we call preteen probably. I think the Togrutan lifespan is pretty similar to humanoids. We'll call it preteen. And she has kind of this desire and drive to prove herself, especially against, I mean, underneath a master like Anakin, who's very, like, reserved in giving his approval. You know, there's just a very unique standard, 100%. Especially if he recognizes the potential in Ahsoka. Right. But as she becomes more comfortable in who she is and in what she does, you definitely see her trusting more in the Force as opposed to feeling the need to really be driven and overcome these natural circumstances. You know, against the droid, she just really wanted to be approved. But you see her, you know, maybe now on the, I don't know, are they called Star Destroyers under the Republic? But basically training with the same 212th and still training with all these same clones in the same format, but she seems a lot more in tune with the Force as opposed to just trying to like force it all, as opposed to trying to, you know, make it happen just for the sake of being approved. But she's, you know, lasting and pushing herself. Even she's saying, you know, I can do better, you know, as opposed to just saying like, hey, didn't I do good enough? You know, saying, hey, I can do better. So it's cool to see that very apparent transition and something that, it's a very short episode. I mean, in the grand scheme of Star Wars in general. Right. So I think they did a good job pacing that and really bringing it to a close, even to the point of the ultimate test against the clones of, hey, their blasters aren't set to stun anymore. You know what I mean? So I think that episode was paced really, really well.
Yeah, I think so too. And I like the, it's one of those things where, we talked about in animation episode a couple episodes ago. We were talking about how more Star Wars is always better, and so having someone like Ahsoka be like, God, like who is this character? Why would Anakin have an apprentice? Can she even be around? Why isn't she in episode 2 or 3? Well, then why isn't she there? Well, then does she die? And like more animation has answered all those questions in such a fantastic way. And it makes like now we're getting to the place where it's exponential and the animation is helping the other animation. So like Tales of the Jedi
filling in the gaps. It
helps you know, kind of validate some of the things you saw in season 7 where she survives Order 66. So you know, I did think it was funny and really kind of it made me chuckle every time that she gets shot and the clones are like, sorry. And it's like, you know, at first they were really worried about her. And then it was kind of like she was just getting knocked out for shorter and shorter spans of time. She wasn't not getting knocked out. It was like, you did good this time. You're only at 5 minutes. Again, like I was just, oh man, I felt kind of bad for her, but it saved her life, you know?
Yeah.
One of the things I did notice in this episode too was, at the very beginning, she's working with the little droids in the shield, and she's just like, "But I could, you know, I did this. I did it better, you know, pretty much better than everybody else." She's like, "Why are you going to make me do this other thing?" And he's just like, "Because, you know, I forget what his actual verbiage was, but it's just like because, you know, if I need you to be able to take care of yourself out there because it's drastically different than you know shooting at you know little droids or whatever the case is." And so, like, he pretty much puts her in the most uncomfortable situation, like with all these guys just literally shooting at her for hours, obviously. And but it's almost like the what is it called in Star Trek? The Kobayashi Maru. Just put her in impossible situations that she can't figure out until she finally figures it out. Right. And I think that's the push, you know, obviously she needed to give her that confidence boost.
Yeah. Did anybody else wonder what the clones were up to in the hour when she was knocked out for the first time?
I 100% did.
Now I do.
Yeah, I 100%.
Kind of casting lots on. All right, I get her lightsaber, you know.
I really thought that it would be the talk of the mess hall, that they were so glad if they were on Ahsoka duty because you would get these like often breaks. You know, like these other guys are like
5 minutes, then we get 45 minutes off.
Exactly.
That's the ideal work schedule, I'll tell you what.
I'm surprised she didn't wake up with like a mustache drawn on or something like that, you know? That's something I would do.
A little
That's
you
really
can't
funny.
handle your liquor mustache.
Mm-hmm.
And also, did you guys notice Kanan was in the episode?
I missed that entirely. Where was he at?
Oh, is he the kid in the room?
He's the kid, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's the kid, like, really impressed with Ahsoka's performance when she's
Yeah.
What a loser.
at the beginning of training.
Wow.
What a rube.
What an
that's funny.
ultramaroon.
A lot of animation Padawans look all the same to me, so I'm not surprised that passed me by. But that's a cool little tidbit there. Speaking of like connections, I feel like we've touched on episode 5 pretty well. What about episode 6? I feel like episode 6 was, for me, a reader of the books and such, it was a little redundant to me because it was very, very parallel to the Ahsoka novel. How do we feel about that?
So, a couple of things. I was upset that in episode 1 of the season, we didn't at least get a small, tiny tidbit of Plo Koon coming to get Ahsoka, because he's the Jedi that discovered her. Mm-hmm. So it was weird. I thought it would be perfect because the Togruta being kind of removed from the Republic, having that big of a handle on what a Jedi is and that kind of stuff would have been, it would have been cooler, in my opinion, if they're like, how can this be? And then you heard, because she's a Jedi. And it was Plo Koon there. That would have been freaking sick. But I agree. I think there's a lot of the stories. The episode 5 was actually the story that I felt like was the most original, because we know that Ahsoka has to have been found. I guess 1 was original, but I knew she would do some sort of feat to be noticed. And then 6 pretty much is out of Ahsoka. The only thing that's different is in the novel, she kills the Inquisitor that is the 6th brother. And his look about him is a little bit different than what we're used to seeing in the comics and stuff. So in the movie or show or whatever that we got, he's got a very like bubonic plague mask kind of thing.
I thought he looked very cool.
You're thought he looked super sick.
The medic mask that has the big bird beak.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought he was cool. I thought he was very cool. I was very on board with whatever he was about. Because a lot of the Inquisitors, I think, look a little bit like cheesy or a little bit, trying to kind of shoehorn a different species in. But I thought he was very, very what I would think an Inquisitor should be. Like, I think if Vader, I go back to the Vader comic where Palpatine basically introduces Vader to the Inquisitorial program and says, basically, you're in charge and you have to train them. And I think that whoever this guy is somebody that Vader might not have been immediately dismissive of. He might have seen this guy and thought, oh, he has potential. So I thought that is a very cool showcasing of what the Inquisitorials should have been.
Yeah, I really liked this guy as well. I thought the voice was really cool. What was y'all's thoughts on how quickly Ahsoka was able to take this guy down? Were you cool with it, or were you?
I had mixed feelings, honestly. Like, being an Inquisitor, you'd think that it'd be a little bit harder, but I mean, Ahsoka's supposed to be pretty BA, but in hiding. So, I mean, like I said, mixed feelings.
Because my one of my thoughts was this: whenever we're watching Twin Sons and Obi-Wan is
that's exactly what I was going to say. Like the immediate.
It's on purpose because of the place that he's at with the Force, and I feel like Ahsoka maybe not as removed as Ben was in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but certainly more so than he would have been in Rebels. So maybe not quite so quick. You know what I mean? Is that kind of we're on the same thing here?
I thought the execution of it was cool. It also makes sense on a removed level where, we've got this amount of runtime. It doesn't seem like Tales of the Jedi is necessarily strict on the runtime. It seems like it could be a very broad window, but they're all shorter episodes. I mean, like 12 to 18 minutes usually. And so on that field, it makes sense to me. I did very much go to Twin Sons Part 2, where Kenobi finished the fight with Maul in half a second.
Right.
That's very, very, very similar to where my mind went. But I thought it was a cool showing because it's supposed to showcase the best of Ahsoka, right? That she's meeting with Bail Organa and she's saying, I don't want to fight anymore. And she's kind of remembered what the fight's all about. And so she's, really put face to face with the whole confrontation all again. You know what I mean? She's tried to pull herself away from it. She's been unsuccessful in that effort. And she's kind of had a reminder of, this is what the Empire is. This is why I fight the Empire. And she's kind of put back in touch with her roots, for lack of a better term, I guess. But, she's a Jedi again for a minute. And
I also thought it was so stupid that and this is always what happens, but anytime a character is like, I thought that we'd be rich if we gave up the Jedi. I think those characters are so freaking annoying.
Yeah.
They're necessary, but it's so annoying, dude.
One thing I did it was you talked about earlier about the first episode about how mom was always carrying her around when she was doing work, whether she was hunting or gathering or whatever the case is. But, and then Ahsoka here in this episode, she's out there hustling in the field. So she's no stranger to hard work as far as away from the Jedi, she got out there, got her hands dirty, and, just because she knew that mom did that, so she just got back to what she knew how to do and just got her hands dirty and got back out there. But again, being able to do that and then have to hide your secrets, I know that's hard.
And I think also one thing I was thinking of was how this is going to sound really selfish or whatever. I would have been so quick to be like, oh, that sucks. If someone was to get crushed by a hay bale, I would have been so quick to be like, oh, dang, but there's make a face like, oh, shucks, reach out and be like, oh, dang, yeah. So it does say a lot about Ahsoka's character that, it's her second nature to help people. It's so funny because in my mind, I would have been like, oh, but I'm not dying. You know what I mean?
I would have had the attitude who's cleaning this up? I ain't doing it.
Right, exactly. What's going on? That's so funny, dude.
So.
And then what are your, did you feel like you saw what you wanted to see out of the Tales of the Jedi, show, or were you hoping there would be more, or, not to get into Dooku too much, obviously.
I liked it. Like I said, I think it filled in some gaps. We didn't even touch on the fact that she was at the funeral.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously we don't see that in episode 3, but she was at the funeral. She ran into Organa, and they talked it out and stuff like that, and he gave her the Captain Marvel beaver. That's how I created it.
Yeah, anytime that somebody gets one of the a throwaway comm, it just reminds me of all the times. I want to say it's in Breaking Bad. But or maybe it's in Supernatural, the show with Sam and Dean Winchester, but they'll talk to somebody. Maybe it's Breaking Bad, but they'll say something like, okay, be at the place 7 o'clock. And then they don't even shut the phone. They just bend it backwards till it breaks and they throw it in the trash.
Yep.
That totally reminds me of.
Breaking Bad.
That's what that reminds me of, is he was like, anytime you need me. And, but I really liked it. And I thought that it was such a, without getting too much into Dooku, I think it's such a great mirror of what we saw in Dooku's couple of episodes, but the opposite.
I love Dooku's episodes.
I did too.
We're not going to get into them too deep because it's easy. But
I recognize there are a lot of Ahsoka fans out there. Sorry, I'm going to step on your tippy toes a little bit. I was here for the Dooku episodes a million times more. And there's the argument to be made that there was the Dooku Jedi Lost and the Master and Apprentice like flashbacks. They kind of included Dooku's background a little bit like we see in these episodes. But I don't feel like it was explored nearly as much as Ahsoka's later story was in the whole Ahsoka novel that was basically her time in that village.
Well, also the show coming out called Ahsoka.
Yeah. So I was just very there. I got to see young Qui-Gon. I've never gotten to see that on screen. You know, I get to see Dooku's honestly spitting straight facts about the state of the Jedi, seeing him put not yet Jedi Master of the Jedi Council, Mace Windu, in his place. So I don't know. There's a lot there for me. Anyway, we won't get too deep into it.
Yeah. I think,
but I loved it.
I was gonna say, going back to what I was saying, like just filling in the gaps. There was a lot of Dooku stuff that filled in the gaps, and I mean, this isn't necessarily a gap, but another side of the story, being at the funeral and her actually going to the funeral, and then when she's talking to Organa, just realizing how much Padme was her friend too.
Yeah,
because she was so close with Anakin. So I mean, it was. I don't know, but seeing that side of things for people who don't read the books or don't know a lot of the backstory, but only see the movies, something like that really, really stands out,
Yeah.
And I think also...
even... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I mean, we even have arcs where Ahsoka's being one-on-one with Padme, right? With the one where she is kind of like a tag-along to the undercover separatist rendezvous friends that were Padme's before they really joined the separatist movement, and she gets the whole romantic arc with what's his name, the pretty boy that's a separatist, and they have the whole Mandalorian arc. But Ahsoka definitely, even beyond just Anakin, has her own relationship with Padme, so it's cool to see that kind of taken to the next step. And then I always like to see the best of Bail, because he's the man that raised Leia, who's the biggest female lead of all the original trilogy. So it's cool to see that connection and see, I don't know, just what matters to Ahsoka beyond what we just see in her connection with Anakin, with her connection with the Jedi, just her as an individual. I think it's a nice touch of, hey, I'm completely disconnected from the Jedi. My whole immediate family, as far as I'm aware, has been eradicated. What's important to me? What's my next step? So to see that in kind of her founding steps of, this is my life beyond the Jedi after Order 66, I think that was a really good stepping stone.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think also there's a lot of times that you see Ahsoka grow alongside another character or because of another character. And this was really cool to just get to focus on her and to see her birth and those first connections with the Force, and then to see her resilience, and then to see her finally by that final episode, it really is just her. It really is her just by herself on the run from the Empire, surviving Order 66. And then, there's that quote that says, some are born great, others have greatness thrust upon them. And it was one of those moments where it's like, no, Ahsoka, you really can't sit on the sidelines, that Esther-esque kind of, whatever you want to call it, fate or calling or whatever you want to, call it. It's really cool to see like in a way the Force chose her. And it's like, as much as she wants to sit on the sidelines, it was everybody being okay with sitting on the sidelines and just towing the line of what was normal for everybody is what got us in this place. Maybe going upstream against everything is, following her gut conviction to leave the Jedi Order when she did, ultimately is what saved her life. Because if she was just towing the company line, she might not have been in a place with Rex. She could have been on assignment somewhere else, and Order 66 could have gone somewhere, a different way. So it's cool to see her growing as an individual. So it's like, it's cool to see the better parts of Anakin shining through Ahsoka in some of these episodes, Yeah. And her trust in the Force is at that level that is kind of rare.
I agree.
So we're don't have to go super long on this one, but I just want to see if you guys had any other thoughts, any kind of tidbits or anything that stood out to you, just little moments or anything like that.
Well, something you just said right there was, she can't really sit on the sidelines that much anymore. It took me back to Cal Kestis. Same situation. He's hiding, he's doing his thing, but yet he can't sit on the sidelines anymore. He gets kind of pushed into that direction. Hey, I'm on the run, but yet I'm learning things as I go, as I grow, and he's I don't know. I just kind of equated it the same. They're kind of same situation, but different circumstances, I guess.
I was curious if Cal was going to make an appearance in the latest episode.
I want him to make an appearance in something. I don't care what it is, just something.
I thought they're getting a second video game, so I guess, whatever. But I thought it would be cool.
I want to see him live action, period.
If the time overlapped. I mean, he already looks exactly like the actor. So
absolutely.
Hear me out.
Okay.
Samuel, I need you to slow down on those drinks, buddy.
It's water.
I know, but you've taken 2 pisses already this episode. We know that we've all been waiting, sitting on pins and needles for Fallen Order Part 2. And remind me of what's the specific name of that one?
Survivors.
Jedi Survivor?
Jedi Survivor. Yeah.
So one thing that's really cool is that game got pushed back, which obviously is a disappointment. But I'm wondering, it's very rare that something like that doesn't happen on purpose, and it seems like it being pushed back is being pushed back like right at, I think it's May 28th or something along those lines. Which
that sounds right. Actually, I got an email about it. I'll check.
I think that lines up perfectly with like the end of The Mandalorian season 3. And so I don't have any, there's no like leaks or anything that I've seen, but the concept or the idea that's been floating around is maybe April he's going to make an appearance. So March 1st is the first Mandalorian episode, and there's 8 episodes. So
do we know
the
how
first, the
soon
9th
after Jedi Fallen Order Jedi Survivor takes place?
It's a year.
Is it?
If it's a year, there's no way they overlap.
Right, but you could have it could be a long-term game.
I guess.
Or
part of me feels like Cal probably dies before episode 4.
Probably. But the chances of him being in there would be interesting, right?
Yeah, that would. I mean, I'm here for it. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, it takes place 5 years after the end of the first game.
Okay, so 9-ish, 10-ish years after Order 66.
Right.
So we're still talking 8 years before A New Hope, give or take.
Yeah, it's out there.
Wow. How old was Luke and how old were Luke and Leia in episode 4? 17, 18?
19.
19? Okay, so 9 years before A New Hope?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure Fallen Order was 5 years after 66.
Yeah,
if I remember the cutscene from the first chapter very well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
But yeah, that's just the rumor. I not the rumor, but the weird thought. Hey, what if?
Yeah. I wonder if they didn't want to distract the hype as much, or if they're trying to keep the hype up from, you know what I mean? You go straight from the end of Mando season 3 into Jedi Survivor.
Because it's literally, as soon as Mando's over, this comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then let me ask you guys this, and then we can kind of close it down. But what are y'all's thoughts on a Tales of the Jedi season 2? Did you guys enjoy it, and would you want to see another one?
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
It seems like it's such a great opportunity to learn. It's kind of like, the channel really started growing whenever we were okay with doing shorts and things like that as well, getting shorter form content out there that's not so involved for the listener. And it's kind of similar in the Tales of the Jedi type stuff because you could do standalone episodes, you could do 2-parters, you could do 3-part arcs, and just kind of go, hey, here's, you could even go into Tales of the Jedi and put a sub-banner of Legends and be like, hey, here's the story of Exar Kun. Because originally, if you'll remember, Tales of the Jedi was like some old Republic stuff where like Exar Kun, Naga Sadow, some of those like really old characters were. So if it was up to you guys, Adam, we'll start with you and then we'll finish with Sam. If you could pick a character to have, like, whether it's a standalone or a 3-part arc, if we're having a Tales of the Jedi Season 2, who's a character you'd like to see fleshed out a little bit more? It can be a Jedi, a Sith, and it can be a main character, or it can be someone like on the fringe.
Maybe I'm partial, but like I would. I don't know. There's a lot. There's several. I want to see more Mace. I always want to see more Mace.
Dude, I think because Shatterpoint was such a popular book back in the day, and we never really got to see a ton of Vapad, but they did make sure it was canonized in the book Brotherhood. It would be really, really interesting if they did like some kind of a story arc where he kind of does his own thing, Although Dooku did make him look like a ween in this season.
Yeah, he did.
Hot take, he is a ween.
It's really interesting if you think about, like, I want to save this thought for next week, but maybe I'll just say the thought and I'll unpack it next week. But do the Jedi fare better with Dooku at the helm next to Yoda than Mace? Next time on Dragon Ball Z. Samuel, who's your character? Quinlan Voss?
Quinlan Voss, Qui-Gon, Terrace Sinube.
Terrace Sinube would be a good one. Okay, give me somebody obscure, Samuel. You're a lore master. You've been in the thick of it. Give me somebody out there.
You know what? This isn't terribly out there, but Yaddle. She seems to be a prominent figure in the Jedi Order. We get a little tidbit of her little British accent in Tales of the Jedi. I think it'd be fun to branch out because we're getting into Grogu. We've got a lot on Yoda for the most part. I mean, we especially having him feature in the High Republic, but seeing a little bit of Yaddle, I think that'd be fun. Kind of just exploration on, we know so little about their species.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
And her origin story, how she came along, how she was developed. I think that would be a really nice rounding out aspect of that character type in general. Aside from that, selfishly, I can never get enough Qui-Gon. I can't ever get enough Qui-Gon. So even just to see him maybe interacting with the wills of the Force, man, that would be poetry.
The wills
for me.
would be fun. Okay, I'll throw somebody out there. I would love a Tales of the Jedi with a Luke Skywalker post Return of the Jedi, pre The Force Awakens, like prime Luke Skywalker, like after
Luke
the Mandalorian and everything.
Yeah, like we get kind of in the Legacy of the Force series, just like at the top of his game.
Or
we get
the training.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if we do another dark side thing, if Tales. So I know Tales of the Jedi, it's kind of iffy because when we start with Dooku, he's on the light. But if we could do Sith, I would love. We don't have nearly enough, and the door is wide freaking open for Darth Bane.
Darth Bane or origin story,
or if they just did Tales
Plagueis.
of the Sith. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Maybe season 2 is Tales of the Sith instead of Tales of the Jedi.
I don't know. I would like to see where Sidious comes from in canon. I've read Plagueis maybe 3 or 4 times. One of my all-time favorite Star Wars books. I would love. I mean, because Plagueis he's canon, so I would love to see where that goes.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So I think there's a lot of. I mean, there's never enough Star Wars. There's never enough. There's always questions. There's always characters I want to explore. So, more Star Wars is always better. Star Wars.
Going back to what I said earlier, I love all these gaps that are filled in. I mean, I think that these little, even again, 12 to 17 minutes, however long they are, I think that they touch on those gaps, and I love it. Like I said, I could probably rewatch these again and catch some more stuff. Like you said, seeing
For sure.
Kanan back there in the background, like totally slipped. Never did catch it.
Yeah, totally.
Dude, I would love to see, like, since we're filling in gaps and stuff, you know, maybe it's a little bit too close for comfort considering we're going to get there with the Ahsoka show and stuff like that. But it would be cool to just revisit the the Kanan Ezra relationship, you know, now that, and maybe, like I said, maybe obviously that's going to be something they reserve, but Tales of the Sith, you could see they could finally flesh out the Son of Dathomir comic, which was supposed to be a Clone Wars arc.
That would be sick.
Maybe Tales of the Jedi is how we finally get the Dark Disciple arc.
Ooh.
Stop it.
Maybe we just stop on that note. We're not going to get a better idea than that. So there's so much more to unpack, but hey, I want to say thank you guys for carving out a little bit of time. We made it work. And so next week we'll be coming at you with Tales of the Jedi Count Dooku edition. It's going to be much longer than this episode.
I have much more to say.
If you're sick of us after 50 minutes, wait till you tune into the Dooku episode. There's going to be a freaking intermission and everything, just like the old movies. But thank you guys for tuning in so much. Again, if you would give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and write us a written review, we will read it on air. And then make sure that you subscribe to us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all of the social medias. We're on TikTok for all you youngsters. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And remember, the Force will be with you always.
Always.
And even more than that, the only family you have yet is me.
We'll see you guys next time on the Chiss Ascendancy.